Welcome to another episode of the Product Coalition European Tour podcast series. Today I'm recording the very first in the Secret City series for the European Tour, and the big reveal is I'm in Cardiff.
Yes, you are.
With Matt Stone. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, yeah.
It's great to have you here. I'm looking forward to this first Cardiff episode, and we're going to be talking about the first 2 months of going consulting.
Yes.
I know this is quite fresh to you.
Very
this topic.
fresh, yeah.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'd like to give thanks to the NatWest Accelerator here in Cardiff. I've just done a tour, and it's a great space, whether you're in a startup, a scale up, or looking to straighten up your business. So I recommend checking out their website. Now, this tour and every single episode of the Product Coalition European Tour is all dedicated to raising awareness and funds for the bushfire-affected communities and wildlife of Australia. If you enjoyed this episode, please show your support to these amazing causes by visiting bushfire.productcoalition.com, or if you'd like to know about the tour as a whole, head over to tour.productcoalition.com. So I'm originally visiting 5 cities, 6 with this bonus city being Cardiff, and I'm travelling to meet product leaders and professionals all around Europe to gain insights, knowledge, and really share as much as I possibly can from these people back to the global community. Now, before we get started, I need to give a huge thanks to the following brands and individuals who have been major donors to the tour fundraiser. First up, I've got UserPilot. UserPilot is a code-free user onboarding and adoption tool designed especially for product management teams. UserPilot helps to increase conversion, user retention rates, and reduce churn by guiding new users to their first aha moment with interactive walkthroughs, contextual product tours, and onboarding checklists. It allows product managers to build fully customizable, behavior-triggered in-app experiences with a simple visual editor. Go to userpilot.com to book your demo and get a free trial. Thank you to UserPilot for your donation. Shobit Chug is the intentional product manager. Shobit is a Google product manager, and he helps product managers to become product leaders and have careers they can be proud of. Go to www.intentionalproductmanager.com and sign up for Shobit's free class on the habits that turn product managers into exceptional product leaders and help them move through their careers fast. Product-led teams like Mixpanel and Flexport know that the best time to capture engagement is when a user is already inside the product. That's why they use Chameleon to drive feature adoption, build onboarding flows, and gather user feedback. You can give that a go at trychameleon.com/success. 2 personal thanks for me is Rich Mironoff and Chris Miles as well. Matt, we can get started.
Let's do this.
Okay, so on all of my podcasts, I've had this icebreaker. In Sydney, it was a pub quiz. In Melbourne, it was a locals guide. Now, for Cardiff, I've gone with, is it Welsh or not?
Okay.
That's the name of the game.
Not being Welsh, I might struggle with this one.
So this is going to be thoroughly enjoyable, yeah. So you're obviously not from Wales?
No, I'm not from Wales, but I've worked here for 2 years.
Yeah, right, okay. That's good enough. Okay, so we've got 2 products first up. Well, one's not really a product, but anyway. First up is the microphone. Is it Welsh or not?
Gosh.
Is it invented by a Welsh man or lady or not?
That sounds obtuse enough to be true, so I'm going to go true.
True? You're right. According to my trusty source, the internet, which says, of course, Edison invented the idea of a microphone when he placed the carbon telephone transmitter inside a telephone and therefore transmitting the voice. But David Edwards Hughes from Bala, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, refined the idea of a microphone as a way of electronically transmitting an acoustic signal and paved the way for the modern microphone that we're using today. There we go.
Great.
All right, next up is the 8-hour workday.
Gosh. I'll say false.
Why?
It just feels like an American thing.
America, you think? Yeah, the 8-hour day?
Yeah.
Are you saying the Welsh don't work hard enough?
They definitely work hard. Yeah. I mean, they play hard as well.
They work so hard, they would never want an 8-hour day. Just give me some more hours. I'm not going home until I'm done. So you'd be right by saying it's not Welsh. It's actually Australian.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
In 1856, the Aussie stonemasons took action to ensure a standard 8-hour working day, which then became recognised worldwide. If only they had demanded a 6-hour workday instead.
Oh, quite.
But we actually celebrate that in Victoria. We have Labour Day, which is a bank holiday to celebrate, defining that. And last up, Matt, we've got some Welsh vocabulary.
Oh gosh.
Is
Okay.
it a Welsh word or not?
Okay, I'll try not to insult anybody with this one.
In 2 years, I'm hoping that you've integrated yourself into the Welsh society.
Yeah, absolutely. Fluent, yeah.
All of the road signs. Okay, the first word is cuffengal. Like put on your cuffengal. Is that a Welsh word or is it not?
I'm going to say not a Welsh word.
I won't ask why. You'd be correct.
Oh.
I made that up in the coffee shop this morning.
It's very good.
The next one is a goody hoo.
Goody hoo, I think is true.
Why?
That's just ringing a bell somewhere.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Like, go check out the goody hoo.
God.
You'd be correct.
Oh, it is.
It's Welsh for owl.
Oh, okay.
And what about pick me up some mookleys?
That sounds false, but could well be true. I'm gonna go false.
False?
Yeah.
It's true.
Oh,
Mookleys is Welsh for beads or a necklace,
very
apparently.
good.
There you go.
Okay.
Every day's school day. Now,
It
two
is.
2 years in Cardiff. What's your favourite landmark? What's your favourite spot when you're in this city? What do you really enjoy?
Well,
What do you enjoy being most of all?
yeah. I mean, if you're a sports fan, there's two fantastic stadiums here. I think we were talking about the football team earlier, weren't we? So yeah, looks there's a great sports atmosphere here. I think if you're not into sports, there's also a great arena here as well. They attract probably the best in the southwest area in terms of talents and
Right.
big shows. There's not really another stadium like that for quite a large area. So if you're in the area, there's usually some good acts to be.
Good sports
seen,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Right, let's get stuck into what's fresh for you, the first 2 months of going consulting.
Yes.
So could you give us a bit of your background, Matt? And before we talk about the last 2 months for you, what's happened before that? How did you get into product?
Yeah, okay. So I actually started as a software engineer, and I've been recovering ever since.
Right.
So I spent about 10 years working for General Electric,
Right, okay.
and during that time I was doing all sorts of very heavy engineering. So it was software, but it was also hydromechanical, electrical engineering, and it was all for equipment that would go on the seabed, and it was used
Right.
to help with oil extraction, so around oil rigs. So very, very deep, very, very specific technology. It taught me a lot about how engineering works, not just within the software world, but outside of it, and how those disciplines have to kind of work together. I had an opportunity with those guys to basically go on a fast track into originally research and development management. So
Right.
I was running projects for those guys, all kind of based around large purchases that were being done by oil companies. And during that time, I actually met another product manager that happened to be working for these guys, and it was like an instant thing. I think a lot of product managers relate to this, where it was just like, that's me, that's what I want to be doing. So I basically spent the next 5 years just nagging them to let me become a product manager as quickly as possible. And to their credit, they gave me a break and they let me do it. I was the youngest product manager I think that they'd ever had at that time, so it was a real like honor and credit that they did that for me. And that was in about 2012, 2013.
Right.
So I spent another 3 or 4 years working for the guys that were doing oil extraction, and during that time, General Electric then launched a program to do machine learning and artificial intelligence at a global scale across all of the machines that they would sell.
Wow. Right, okay.
So that was all based in San Ramon in California, and they approached me one day. They said they'd like me to be part of that journey that they were going on there, which again was just a fantastic compliment to join that. It was a crazy time. They were spending I think they were saying $1 billion a year.
Right.
Trying to launch this thing that they were developing.
Right, okay.
And again, it was just a fantastic crash course in everything about how to launch
Yeah, right.
big scale data-led products, lots and lots of learnings in there.
Right. And again, in the resources space?
Yes, it was everything from aviation through to nuclear power, turbines, oil plants,
Fantastic.
you name it. Yeah, so anything that's got like heavy machinery.
Yeah.
They were trying to develop a software platform that spoke to and used the data from the machines as opposed to the more traditional platforms that you might know about, so like AWS and Azure, and those stacks are based on consumer data and how people work. The platform that GE were trying to build was based around how machines would talk to each other, so it was kind of built from the ground up.
IoT at an industrial scale.
Stuff,
Machine
to machine talking.
Brilliant.
So it was a fantastic challenge to be part of. And they were really tackling head on some very difficult concepts, things that even today, 4 years on, we're still trying to wrap our heads around and figure out how to make this stuff all kind of gel together. So it was great to be at the beginning of that stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
So from there, is that when you made the jump into product consulting?
It wasn't. So I had another stint. So I'd spent a lifetime in B2B, and I really enjoyed product management, and what I wanted to do to round myself out was to spend a bit of time working on consumer-facing products as well as everything I'd learned through GE. So I had an opportunity to join Go Compare. So for those of you who aren't UK-based, they're a price comparison website. They're one of the big four in the UK. And what was exciting for me about joining those guys is that they were looking at how they could go beyond you going to a website. I'm not sure if you have this kind of thing in Australia.
We do. So I worked for the Australian equivalent, actually. iSelect.
Okay. Great. Okay, so you know the challenge, right? Which is, buying insurance or switching energy is super boring. You never really want to do it. And you're only really ever visiting that website once a year, and then you're off again. And often you don't even remember that you've got an account with these guys. You only do it when you're in that moment of need. So the challenge that these guys have is how on earth do they convince you to use and be sticky with a service over multiple periods? So they were, and to their credit, they were experimenting with different models. So the comparison space and the insurance space is something that hasn't really changed for many, many years. And people are still very, very frustrated with the whole process there. So they were looking at seriously how they could have improved that. And they brought me in to effectively launch one of their first versions of that, which was an auto switching service. Yep. So it kind of went beyond, once or twice and you having to take action. And giving you instead something that you gave permission to act on your behalf at regular intervals to be able to do that. So that was a fantastic time. Again, a really great crash course in everything about B2C and consumer-led products and how to create stickiness with products.
And if I remember that auto switching product, that disrupted the market in itself because you no longer needed to do any applications for new power companies, and therefore month by month, almost, or quarter by quarter, you're on the cheapest supplier. So that was a disruptive product, from what I remember when it came to market.
Yeah, it was. So I think there's a couple of folks that do this now, but it was all kind of based in the premise of there's nothing really that's changing.
Electricity is electricity, right? As long as it's on.
There's no version like premium energy, right? So it's just how much you're spending. And
can't charge your iPhone any quicker by paying more.
Exactly. And the mad thing is, half the people that are listening to this could save £300 a year right now. Right, and I mean right now with about 15 seconds effort.
Right.
Most people don't do it.
Yeah, right.
Right? Because, and I know what goes through your mind because it goes through my mind as well. Like, it's a faff, like, is it real? All that stuff. So the point was okay, you may switch energy, but most people do it once and then they never do it again.
Yeah, when you move in.
That's it. So why not take on a service where that can kind of deal with that hassle for you? You've given it permission, you've given it all your details, and then it can be the thing that's kind of dealing with that hassle on your behalf year after year to make sure that you're not being ripped off on a bill. Right.
Can I ask how did you manage and find that transition going from big industrial B2B to B2C?
It was crazy.
Was there a mental shift? Was there big differences that you found?
Really big shift. It actually took me a while to adjust. Right, I was going from a team of 300,000 to 300.
Well, that's a shift.
So it was phenomenal. And I think that the major thing that I observed was in a large organization, you spend a lot of time presenting concepts that can permeate multiple layers in the business. So you have to get really, really good at condensing down your prospect or what you're trying to explain into a simple message that can go across multiple layers of management. Whereas in a smaller organization, you can have a much higher bandwidth conversation directly with the founder, the CEO, whoever it happens to be. So, and that has always been my philosophy on why smaller organizations get to move quicker. It's because they can have more quality conversations without having to get alignment across multiple layers of the business. So it was actually I saw it as a great opportunity to accelerate everything that I'd learned. I could peel away a couple of the pieces that I was forced to do in a larger organization just to make sure that things happen and shortcut to action.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. So from Go Compare.
So as of 2 months ago, so I finally scratched that itch, which was that I was wanting to work for myself. And I've had a bit of success in the past running 2 small side projects. They kind of went okay, but I always wanted to do for that to be my main thing that I did day to day.
Go all in.
Yeah, exactly.
Go pro.
And I struggled mentally for a long time about what product I was going to launch in the market. I was saying to myself, I'm not going to switch out of permanent employment until I find the product, the thing that I believe in enough to quit. Right. And the epiphany that I had was the product, and actually everything I could sell was everything that I was learning about product management. It was one of the reasons I got into product management in the first place, is because you get that great exposure to so many working functions of a business. And again, my theory was during that time, I'd also get exposure to lots of different products, and that would spark something in me that kind of said, okay, that's definitely the thing I want to do. But actually what I've come to realize is all these skills that I've acquired are saleable services in their own right. And I've definitely, through everything I've seen, actually product managers, very interestingly, are well positioned out of all the possible disciplines that could get into consultancy. Product managers themselves actually have quite a natural fit for consultancies,
right?
Which is really interesting.
Fantastic. So, what was, do you think, your biggest barrier to making that switch? So it was 2 months ago. So this itch must have been there for 6 months, a year prior.
Probably my whole career.
Been sitting on it. So what happened the day that you decided? What was it that just went? Yeah, I'm in. What was that moment?
I think it was, when you kind of look through the next year ahead and you're going, what is it that you want to achieve? And my journey with Go Compare, although fantastic, was coming to an end. And I had basically a choice as to whether I went out and sought permanent employment, joined somebody else's mission, somebody else's campaign. And I was sitting back in that moment and going, and looking through the job sites, and obviously it's super quiet in December anyway when you're looking at this stuff, sitting back and realizing actually the most appealing thing would be something that I could forge for myself. So I just kind of went, that's great. Let's do it. And I think, very specifically, the next step that I took from there was to pick the brains of as many consultants as I could.
Right.
So I recognized this was a completely new angle for me. I've been a permanent employee forever. I've been thinking about launching products, and I'd gotten pretty good at kind of testing ideas and stuff, but I'd never tested the idea of being a consultant myself. So typical product manager wanting data as quickly as possible and wanting to test an idea.
Put it through a discovery.
That's it.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And so I very luckily through my network, and again, I'm super gracious for everybody who gave me time, was able to secure phone interviews and conversations with about 7 or 8 well-known consultants in the UK.
Right.
And they just gave me an absolute download of all of their lessons, how they got started, things that they would advise on. And
sorry, Matt, are these independent consultants like yourself, or big consulting firms like the BCGs and Deloitte and those types of things?
Yeah, it was a mix.
Right.
So it was everybody from independent consultants through to much larger Deloittes.
Brilliant.
And I also spoke to folks that worked for SME-sized agencies as well.
Right.
So, and a mix in that as well. So product management specialist organizations, but also folks that worked inside of a larger group. So product management was an element of what that agency did. And again, what I was trying to test there was what type of consultant did I want to be. And I think anybody who's thinking about going into consultancy will come up against the same thing. And there's definitely benefits of going and working for a larger agency. It's basically that the stream of work is going to be much more assured. You can walk in at a junior level potentially and be leveled up whilst you're there. For me, the big attraction though was to work directly with organizations on my own terms. And with that, what I was also trying to do was carve out a space to work with SMEs and scale-ups that perhaps weren't interesting to these larger agencies. And again, it was a kind of mind over heart thing. Like the conversation I had in my head was, I can go and work for one of these larger agencies. They can give me a salary. They'll bring the work in, and I can kind of sit there on the line and deal with things as they come in. But to me, that wasn't exciting. So my heart was actually in, and the mission that I wanted to go on was, I want to go and meet and help a bunch of fledgling businesses really get to their potential.
Right. Okay. So you've been really precise, is what I'm hearing, in knowing your addressable market.
Yeah.
And have you focused geographically as a consultant around the sort of Bristol, Cardiff area in the southwest of England here, or have you sort of just gone, anyone in the UK? I'm happy to jump on a flight. Has that factored in? Because, with the software products, you can do it from anywhere, as we know. But as a consultant, there's obviously a lot of face-to-face.
There is, yeah.
And how's that factored into?
The first thing to say is I spent the last 2 years commuting into Wales from Bristol in the southwest, so that was about 100 miles round trip. So, as I'm only 2 months in, I'm taking advantage of the fact that I don't have to have a commute right now, or at least not too often. So I'm focusing on businesses in Bristol at the moment for two reasons. They're on my doorstep. My network is here as well. But my intention absolutely is to create something that's transferable regardless of the geography. And certainly there are lots of exciting hubs in the UK alone of spaces where very interesting companies are starting to grow up. So take Bristol, for example, which is just across the pond here. There's something like 10,000 technology companies there. So and they're attracting investment at a level which is only really outnumbered by London.
Right. Okay.
So there's this. So London is very, very well established, and I think people know London well as a centre of innovation. But there's a great movement happening right now where that innovation and those best practices are starting to come out to some of the larger secondary layer cities in the UK. Yep.
So like Bristol, Cambridge.
Yes, Manchester, these kind of big places.
And Bristol, correct me if I'm wrong, from memory, is the home of aerospace in Britain, like Boeing?
Yes,
or someone.
I'm going to have a mind blank now.
Sorry, it's not
Airbus.
part of the quiz. Airbus, right, there we go.
Yes, so the wings of the A380 were made in Bristol, so they did all of that heavy engineering there.
Right.
And they have a aviation space and a heavy industry space as well, so that's where I worked with General Electric as well. They do a lot of stuff with carbon composites, so they've got the National Carbon Composite Centre in Bristol as well. And they've got the large centres, but they've also got a great collection of incubators, much like Cardiff does as well, where you find these SMEs and scale-up organisations that are looking for that support to kind of get to the next level. So great. If I kind of encompass the whole southwest of England and Wales area, there's a great nexus of very exciting things that are happening here at the moment, and there's a great opportunity to help a bunch of companies in the kind of work that I'm doing.
Would I be correct in bringing up Isambard Kingdom Brunel and
connecting
him to Bristol as well?
Yes.
There was an innovator.
He was. Yes. Yeah, I was actually trying to find some great quotes of his to use as some content that was...
Should have done the quiz on Bristol, not Cardiff at the start, and you would have nailed it. So can you talk to me a little bit, Matt, about how do you differentiate yourself as a consultant when you're getting face-to-face or meeting people?
Yeah, I think about that challenge more in terms of like any product, you've got to make sure that you've understood the problem correctly about what these businesses need to achieve. You can imagine, particularly in the world of consultations, they are being barraged day in, day out by the Deloitte message. They're also kind of getting management consultants. So consultant can mean so many different things.
Yeah, right.
So what I spent a lot of time refining with talking through consultants and also talking to business owners was, what are the problems that these kind of organizations are having? And therefore, where would product management add a lot of value really, really quickly? So it's perhaps not surprising, but it's all kind of in the space of they've achieved first wins potentially with what they're doing. So they may have a couple of customers, let's say 10, 20 customers in the B2B space, maybe a couple of hundred or thousand in the B2C space. But they really are unclear about how to get that to 1,000 in the B2B space or 100,000 to 1 million in the B2C space. And not only are they unclear about what the proposition should be, they're unclear even how to kind of start to address that problem. Like, how do they even test without risking everything? Because an SME is so close to the wire in terms of cash flow all the time. How do they test that quickly and find out exactly what they should be bringing to market to achieve that kind of scale? So because of that, I've kind of taken all those kind of best practices that we as product managers get to know really, really quickly around validation, around A/B testing, around user interviews, and repackaging that with language that a business owner would understand in terms of the problem that it solves for. So, for example, let's say that there is a challenge of an organization which has a beta that they've created. And I'm going to use a B2B example just because that's more of my background, right? So they've created a product and they've won 2 major projects. And those major projects now are consuming 80% of their development resource.
Right.
And these projects are now asking for custom features. So what's happening is that they're developing effectively a project and a bespoke solution for that one customer. But they know that if they want to get 5 customers, 10 customers, they've got to figure out how on earth they pick between all these possible things that they're developing effectively for free on these projects, and turn those into things that can be packaged up. They can be configured really, really quickly, scaled to multiple customers. So one of the packages and one of the things I help with is to do a discovery process inside of the things that they've already created.
Okay.
So the way that looks is that we would kind of go through why the customer needed that and whether that is something that we can test with other customers to see whether that scales beyond. And again, that's a great exercise for that company to go through because they feel like they've got a choice. They've either got to follow the money and develop something for that business, or they've got to step aside and not make money but build something modular that can scale. So what I help them with is to basically have their cake and eat it, and recognize how they can use projects and the wins and where they've found opportunities to naturally grow scalable products.
I'm thinking of Feature Factory. Like you're like trying to prevent them from becoming a feature factory in what they're doing and reassessing the value of what they've already created. Because I mean, we know as product people, with the fact that you've got a feature, it needs supporting, it needs ongoing testing, etc. Even beyond the life of bringing it to market.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask, how have you found that when you've critiqued what they've already got, do you discover things that aren't being used? And how do you position that to maybe take things out of the product or the service offering? And how's that received?
What I often find is that those kind of features are already resented.
Right. Okay.
They feel like a necessary evil. They know that they don't. It just is. Even if it's just an instinct, they feel like it's away from the core. So often all they really need is permission to take that out and to focus on the right thing. So it's kind of a negative and a positive. It's a carrot and stick piece, right? So the kind of benefit is to say, this is consuming a lot of your capacity for not much value. So again, it's in terms of the business owner is used to attributing, right? So they're looking at maximum value for every penny that's spent. This is costing you a lot. Doesn't look like it has a lot of future in it. Move away. But that in itself is not enough. You have to fill it with something else, which is the catch-22 on this stuff, right? So it's saying, if we weren't to do that thing and we were to create that capacity in the organization, what is the most important feature to be developing right now? And if we don't know that, how can we go and understand and discover that through all the successful engagements and talking to all the prospective customers that we'd like to acquire?
Right, okay. Can I ask, in the product space, we've got metrics to measure success for what we're doing.
Yeah.
As a consultant, what metrics are you picking? I mean, an obvious one is you're able to afford to eat. Now you've made this change. But how do you measure the effectiveness of consultancy?
Yeah, it's an interesting. Again, I noodled on this one a lot.
Right, okay.
I recognised that because it was just me to start with, my major value was my major limiting factor was my time.
Right.
I had to get maximum value from any time, any contact that I had with prospective customers. I also was realistic with myself up front that not everybody is going to buy my services. So I built myself a classic conversion funnel.
Brilliant.
And I said, okay, I want for me to fill my capacity to what I can achieve, I need to have, I think I worked out about 5 or 6 engaged customers a month, whether that's a retainer or a one-off workshop. And so I worked back from that and said, okay, of those 5 or 6, let's assume that maybe 10% of the people I talk to is actually going to be interested in doing that stuff. And then I added another 50% contingency on top of that because people don't have time, they don't read emails, whatever it is. So that gave me a number of approximately 100 people that I needed to talk to really, really quickly, and then try and trickle people down the funnel. That's a long way of saying I've had a lot of coffee in the last 2 months and met a lot of people. And
I imagine, that's quite a brave thing to do. I mean, you've gone from being a software engineer into working in R&D in a global, very safe, big company into shifting completely into consumer space, commuting into Cardiff every day, and then all of a sudden you've got to pick up the phone to 100 people.
Yes.
Did that come natural to you, or was that a fight?
I did struggle with it, actually.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the classic imposter syndrome started to kick in.
Right, okay.
I was really struggling with whether I was going to be able to add value to these guys.
Right.
But again, talking with other consultants really helped to relax me about that stuff. And they helped me, they helped me understand that, some of the concepts we talk about in product management are very, very sophisticated. And they're at a level where if you're not in the world of product management, they don't make sense to people who look at product management from the outside. So the thing that other consultants help me understand is the simplest levels of product management, the simplest applications of product management, figuring out what those are, add value to so many businesses so quickly because they're just not in that world.
Right. Okay.
And they don't even see the challenges that are obvious to a product manager who's been in that space for a long time. So just showing them the light on this stuff and being given permission to do so, you add value in an hour.
Great.
And so because of that, I started to relax and feel comfortable that, even getting these guys to a phone call or a coffee, I could have a great conversation about the challenges that they were experiencing and just pick 2 or 3 typical toolboxes off the top of my head that would add value. It would instantly make sense to that owner as long as I was being sincere and honest about the problem and I'd understood it correctly. So that relaxed me because it meant I didn't feel like I was asking for permission to work for these guys. I was effectively going out there to see if I could help.
Great.
And, being in that mindset, not kind of feeling needy about needing this thing to say, but just basically having a bit of fun and going and listening to a business and the challenges that they were having and potentially being able to suggest some pointers that would help them. Made these phone calls actually an enjoyable experience from the outset.
Superb. I mean, it brings you back to one of the core product management principles. You're sitting there and you're listening to their problem, and you're not trying to sell a solution. You're just trying to understand that problem, and the value all comes from that in time.
That's it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Can I ask, as product managers, we're always balancing and fighting with assumptions and prioritizing assumptions. What's the biggest assumption you had that has caught you out? What was been your biggest learning so far? That you assumed something, but it turns out.
I think it was time.
Time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my assumption was that, or rather, I had an ambition that things. Although I'm only 2 months in, I was hoping for things to be signed and on the line by the time I come around to February. Because again, I'd set myself like a quarterly objective with OKRs against it.
Great.
And one of those was a certain amount of revenue locked in with agreements. And the reality is that it just takes time. And although it's important to me and anybody who's a consultant on the outside of a business, and you're sending an email and you may not get a response for 3 or 4 days, the thing that I had to kind of challenge myself on was remembering the context of who I was talking to, that I was one thing and not even a certain thing on a list of 100 on their to-do list. So the assumption that people would engage quickly and make quick decisions about this was the big one. But again, I tried to turn that into a positive thing, which was to say, what can I do to help promote this up the priority list for prospective customers, either by being much clearer on the value or clearing blockers as to why they couldn't engage with me right now.
Right.
And again, that helped a lot with some of the companies I'm now able to work with, was to either provide them with toolkits over email or simplify the engagement to a quick phone call up front rather than a full workshop. Those kind of things meant that I had an engagement of sorts, and more importantly, that customer was able to take action as quickly as possible around these things.
Fantastic. And what's next for you?
Well, so being a product manager, obviously the world.
Got a roadmap?
Yeah, got a roadmap. Yeah, so I think the big question for me is how this scales beyond me. So what's going through my mind at the moment is, do I start with an affiliate model where I find other like-minded product managers who are looking to take that leap out of permanent employment and kind of go their own path? Do I potentially take on employees as well? And my big frontier for sure is about how I take everything that's in my head in terms of all these lessons I've learned and turn that into something that's transferable, something that doesn't require me to be in the room to convey that value to a customer.
Right. Fantastic. Look, Matt, I massively respect anyone who puts himself in a vulnerable position, and you certainly have by taking that leap. So I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much.
It's been awesome to chat through. I know that there's many product people that have either been in product a long while or less than a year that consulting opportunities either come along or they start to think about it, or they've moved to consulting and then want to move back and yo-yo between the two. Yeah. But I think this is going to be a really valuable episode for the audience. So thanks for sharing everything, and best wishes for the year ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for listening to this episode. Thanks to Matt Stone for joining me and talking through his first 2 months of going into consulting as a product manager. If you've enjoyed this episode or any of the episodes on the Product Coalition European Tour, please consider supporting the bushfire affected communities, wildlife and volunteer firefighters of Australia. And you can do that by going to bushfire.productcoalition.com. Until the next episode, thanks for listening. Cheers.